Good morning, everyone. So, VidCon was last week, and I wanted to take this time to just share my thoughts with you about the trip. Now, I realize that my tone and what seems to be my overall lack of enthusiasm about wanting to talk about this trip may say that it wasn't a very pleasant experience. That's mostly largely because I have no clue how I'm going to convey what I want to say today. I did not want that to rhyme, but it rhymed. So first off, I just want to say I really did have a good time. Dana had a good time too. We did more stuff this year. At least I felt like I did more stuff this year. I got to share my story about how I found out about this community, which of course was through Hank and John Green's channel, who, by the way, has a new book coming out on October 10th. And I was there in person to hear him announce it.
Thank you. It's been 5.5 years since The Fault in Our Stars came out. It's been a long 5.5 years in my life, and really challenging in a lot of different ways. Of course, it wasn't that I wasn't working during that time. Lots of stuff happened. Crash Course happened. Movies happened. But for a lot of that time, I was writing and really struggling with it. And in the last 2 years, I've been able to work consistently on a story, and it's been really great. It's been really fun. Hard, but fun. And yeah, and it's done. And I kept it a secret from you guys because I really wanted this moment. I really wanted to be able to tell you in person.
I also got to meet both of them again, and I had John sign my copy of Looking for Alaska, and I also told them how much I love what they're doing for education with all their educational supplements that they're creating. I also got to meet Craig Benzine, also known as Wheezy Waiter, and I got to have a really nice talk with him in addition to getting a picture or two. I got to hear Hank play a great acoustic set at a concert.
Need Harry Potter like a Grindylow needs water, and as that day approaches I need grows.
Watch these guys perform almost every single viral video over the last 20 years, found Waldo, made a donut, and almost got run over by a mob. Which leads me to the initial point that I want to talk about today. Most of the time that I was at VidCon, I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. I don't know why I felt that, but pretty much from the moment that I left, I felt like this whole trip was wrong. Now, this feeling isn't something new to me. Some of you may remember a few years ago when I went for a job interview in North Dakota where I almost missed my flight and my rental car got stuck in the mud. The same feeling happened throughout that entire trip. That whole trip, to me, felt wrong. Ironically enough, that was right after the trip to interview here. Now, as I just said, I don't know why I felt this way about the VidCon trip, but when Dana and I got home, there were some things that I found online that maybe kind of helped me understand the feeling that I had. There were some rather unfortunate events that happened at VidCon this year that didn't really involve me or anything that I was a part of, but at the same time, they happened. And they happened to a point where VidCon had to discuss it and make it known to people. I'm not going to go into extreme detail, but there were basically two things that were addressed. One, creators who were not featured guests, meaning they weren't invited by VidCon, were showing up and creating these massive mobs of people and fans. Now, this happened last year. I remember this happening last year. But for some reason this year, it was like really out of hand. I mean, it got so out of hand at one point that one of these mobs was literally running practically right at me. So the weirdest thing just happened, and I wish I had had this out for it, but I'm walking down this hallway behind me, just heading toward the expo hall, and I hear screaming, obviously, so I'm like, okay, somebody famous or whatnot is walking through here. Then I see a group like run into the expo hall, but then suddenly they're like running toward me. I'm like, oh dear, you could probably hear. And he was running like directly at me, like, I better get out of the way. So I got out of the way. He just like flew through the doors that are right over here and like pole vaulted over the fence
and kept running into the whatever the hotel is right across the way here.
Now, the result of this was that security would have to take the creator to a safe spot in order to prevent them from getting hurt or anyone else getting hurt. But then they also had to explain to this creator that if they went out and intentionally created the mob again, they would be banned from the event. I'm not sure if it was, like, indefinitely, but it was a pretty substantial amount of time. And in short, I think that's what ended up happening, which, I mean, I think is a little harsh. I mean, I can understand why they would have to do that. I mean, I'm not the one in charge, so I'm not the one making these decisions. So, again, I kind of understand where security was coming from with that. And the second thing, which is a little bit harder to talk about, there was a panel at VidCon called Women on YouTube, and it featured a creator who was very vocal about being a feminist. And apparently, an individual who is known to have given her a rough time in the past and has been very nasty to her in the past, filmed the front rows, like the front 3 rows of this panel with his friends just to harass her throughout the entire panel. Apparently this led to her calling him some really inappropriate names while on the panel in front of the rest of the audience, and it caused quite a stir throughout the entire conference to the point where Hank Green had to sit down with her and discuss this whole situation. For those of you who don't know, Hank Green is the CEO of VidCon. Now, I realize none of these panels directly affected me in any way, even though I was almost run over by a mob. But at the same time, both of these events opened my eyes up to something that I don't know if I was oblivious to or just didn't realize about this community. And that is that no community is exempt from politics. Some of you may know this, and if you don't, you will now, but I loathe and revile anything that has to do with political discourse, specifically in today's society, because the minute that you disagree with someone about any issue, you are automatically labeled as a bigot or a hater or a homophobe or anything else just because you are expressing your own opinion. I'm not sure when my next trip to VidCon is going to be. It's going to be a while, I know that. And quite frankly, I'm going to bask in that time that I am not out, at least in that specific area of the country. If I've learned anything else from this trip, other than that politics is also a part of the online video community, which I don't know how I didn't realize that, is that I could not live or survive in Southern California. It's definitely not a place where I would succeed. So those are my thoughts from VidCon 2017. Any of you watching were also there. Don't let my thoughts dictate how you felt about the conference. I generally did have a good time. I mean, I got to be in the presence of John Green when he announced his new book. How cool is that? I hope if any of you go in the future, enjoy yourselves too. Don't let the politics get in the way of anything. God bless you guys, and I will see all of you on Tuesday with the 4th of July outtakes video. Take care.